Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. I was a bit unlucky last weekend. I prepared on Friday my Koenig race car by changing all the fluids and topping up the cooling liquid, checking the brakes and the brake pads, in fact bleeding even the brakes and bleeding the clutch. Had to do some additional work on the clutch adjustment, adjusting the riding height, and all the kind of things you typically do, like verifying all the bolts, that everything is tight and secured in place. And then finally, I did my final alignment for my camber and my toe. So I'm running about 1 millimeter toe in the front, and I'm running about 1.5 degrees negative camber in the front and in the back. In the back, I have no toe in or toe out. It is 0. And that always have worked fine for this car. So I took off on Saturday morning at around 5 o'clock. I arrived at the Croix-en-Ternois racetrack, which is a racetrack in the north of France, about 2 kilometers long, and it's a very technical track with lots of turns, and I really enjoy driving that. And with a small car like this that I have here, the Koenig, it's the ideal circuit to drive on. So I got there at around 7 and we had our pilot's brief. It was a bit chilly in the morning, around 9 degrees centigrade. So we took off with the cars for a 1-hour open pit lane so we could warm up the cars, warm up the tires and all this. And all went very well. I had no issues, just had to refuel it a few times. But besides that, it was just running like a champ. But besides that, it was running like a champ. And then we had the second run. So there we were speeding up with the car. We really were kind of starting to push it to the limits. You know, the tarmac was warmer. By now it was around 16 degrees, 18 degrees centigrade. The tires were getting warm, so we could pick up some speed. And at the third run, I actually thought we were swinging along that tarmac. It was just sailing along. It went perfectly. But then I ran into an issue. A colleague of mine passed me on the left-hand side just before I was about to turn in a right-hander. And he passed me on the left. And he thought he passed me in full because he was getting to the end of the track, which was turning away. So he thought he could pass me still on the left, and then he noticed he was getting close to the edge of the tarmac, and once you hit the grass, that's not a good thing. So he pushed forward real quick, and then he turned over the steering wheel and just cut off my way in the front. I think he underestimated my speed and overestimated his speed, and his rear tire caught my front tire on the Koenig. And the result was we both got into a spin, and we both ended up in the gravel pit with a little bit of damage to the cars, but luckily we were both okay. There's nothing to be claimed against each other because you signed a paper of no claim, so there's no way you can legally make somebody responsible for it or not. You cannot claim money for damage, but it doesn't matter because we're all friends there and we all signed that paper. You know, and crashing into each other, well, I would say that's part of the game. Not that you want to do this, but it does happen. Because after all, you're driving pretty high speeds on these tracks and you got to watch out all over the place. And by no means I'm pointing the finger at anybody or my colleague with the other car. That's not the intent, because after all, we are all good friends. And even after the incident, when they towed me away, they also had to tow him away. And it's a bit of an embarrassing moment because my car was lifted up with a crane on the hoop. And then, of course, the car is turning around a bit because it's only on one rope. So you have to hold it in one place, and then you have to walk the tarmac, and then everybody is watching, and it's, oh, look at that guy. I mean, you know, it's not fun. Anyway, once we were back in the paddock, we talked, and he came to me, actually, this guy, and he was a young guy. He said, you don't have too much damage? I said, no, it's all right. I said, what about you? Oh, it's not too bad. I have a rare wishbone, which is totally bent. You know, we're just friends, and then next time around, we sit together again, we talk about the cars. But now let's have a look what is really wrong with this car. Because when I looked at it, when the car was back in the paddock and I was about ready to pull it onto the trailer, it looked like I only had two small problems. But reality is, it's a bit more severe than what I thought. So let's have a look. I'm going to take the nose off the car so it's better to see what kind of damage we have. Now I have the car on the roller, so it makes it easier to turn it around. This is my front left wheel, and as you can see, it's not pointing in the right direction at all compared to the right-hand one. So, look, it's all loose. In fact, this is how the wheel was stuck after the crash. It got really bent over like this. I was turning in the right-hander to the right, and he passed me and turned off real sharp in front of me, and his rear wheel did hit my rim here. And then, of course, it destroyed the lip on the rim. Now, the good thing about this wheel is that the inner part is still intact, so I can actually remove the lip with these 16 nuts and then just put a new lip up, and most likely I will need a new tire. This bar right here snapped right here. Now, I've been able to turn it back on a little bit just to get it onto the trailer. That's why on this side it is loose. But this bar really snapped off, flat off. So not a big deal. I mean, these bars are not that hard to make, so I will make a new one for that. But let's have a look on the way this suspension is holding up the car. So this bar here is the one that is pushing up the suspension, and it connects to this solid bracket here, which is actually part of the coilover, which is inside the cockpit. And it actually broke off right here. That's where it broke. Now, I have it already disconnected now, but it actually broke off here. And then, of course, this ball joint came loose. So that's where I lost totally my steering. So when I checked the wishbone, the lower wishbone, there's a minor dent in here. It's no longer absolutely flat. So it is slightly bent. Let me get a ruler so you can actually see it. And you can see that we have an opening underneath. And that is because it is bent. So we'll have to create a new wishbone for that. If I'm looking to the front of the chassis, then I can see that the bracket which is holding the lower wishbone is actually higher up compared to the one on the right-hand side. This is the correct height. This one is not. Now, underneath, and I can't show you right now, that is where it is ripped off. So I have to re-weld that part underneath. And if that wasn't enough, we have another problem. So if you're looking at the steering rack, which is this black part here, that is attached to the frame with these aluminum blocks. And look at the position of that block compared to that one. This one is really facing downwards. And it actually has bent the metal here where it's attached to. So it's not the aluminum that was bent, but it's actually the panel behind it with all the holes in that is bent. So we will have to straighten that one up as well. And here you have a little bit of a better view where you can see the difference between the left bracket and the right-hand side bracket. The steering house seems to be okay, but that's still something to be seen. Now the steering feels all right, but I can hear some noises in the front here, like something is rubbing against something. So I need to check that out. I'm going to take the tub off to see what it is. But I expect, because of the bracket being bent, that the shaft here is also moved out a bit. So let's try to take the shell off, and it's easier when I step inside. Strange, but it is. That cross joint here is actually hitting the frame on the side. And that is because the steering house has moved down in the front on the left-hand side, as we have seen. So once I straighten that up, it should be okay. Well, all by all, the damage isn't all that bad, and it's easily fixable, so I don't worry too much about it. So to conclude, this is going to cost me about 500-600 euros to fix that issue. I already have a spare lip for my rim, so that should not be the issue. The tire, I don't know yet. We need to check. I have a spare lower wishbone. Luckily, I have that one. But I will have to make the 2 additional rods, one for the steering and then one for the suspension. I probably will have to change also all the ball joints on that side because they may have had a nick and I don't want to take no risks, so I might as well do that. So you will see me doing that maybe in one of the next videos. So thank you for viewing, and I'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.